Randonautica is a self-described choose-your-own-adventure app that has gained mild popularity in the last few years. The way it works is the app will generate a random location within an area of your choosing, and then you go there and find something interesting to share with your friends on social media, or other randonauts as they are referred to. One of the most popular social media platforms to do this on is of course TikTok, and on June 19, 2020, a group of friends using the app was taken to a beach near a popular outdoor market in Seattle, Washington. It was here they discovered a suitcase washed up along the rocks and decided to investigate further. Hopping down by the shore, they immediately noticed a terrible smell emitting from the bag, which grew larger as they opened it. Inside, they found a bundle of trash bags that were filled up, and the stench became overpowering. At this point, the teens admitted they were getting kind of scared and decided to call 911. The police, who were short-staffed partially due to the political unrest going on in the area at the time, didn't exactly see bad-smelling luggage as a huge priority and arrived 2 hours after the teens initially contacted them. By this point, the bag inside the suitcase had started floating back out into the rising tide, and police had to use a stick to retrieve it. Inside, a gruesome discovery was made: the dismembered remains of a human being. Well aware of the seriousness of the situation now, officers closed off the beach and began a search of the area for clues. 3 days later, a second bag was discovered floating in the water nearby, which also contained human remains. The coroner's office completed an autopsy and identified the bodies as belonging to 27-year-old Austin Winter and his 35-year-old girlfriend Jessica Lewis. It was determined that both of them had been beaten and shot multiple times, with their bodies being placed in the suitcase as an attempted disposal method. News of the couple's death devastated their loved ones. Austin was described by his family and friends as someone with a big heart who loved the outdoors and country music. Jessica worked at a local nursing home and was called a ray of sunshine by those closest to her. Both of them were parents, with Austin having a young son from a prior relationship and Jessica being a mother of 4. The two had been together for 8 years, and although they had recently fallen on hard times, their family and friends say they still very much loved and supported one another. The sudden and senseless nature of their deaths left their family members in mourning, and police rushing to try and figure out what happened. In the first series of interviews conducted, they discovered the two had been staying in a town just south of Seattle called Braun, renting a room from an elderly landlord named Mike. They also discovered that Austin and Jessica had apparently gotten into trouble with some local Samoans and owed the gang some money. The Sons of Samoa are a Crip-affiliated gang that have a prolific presence in Seattle and the surrounding areas, and they are not the kind of people whose bad side you want to be on. According to witnesses, Austin had told them he and Jessica had both been threatened at gunpoint by the men whom they owed money to, with the Samoans even going as far as to write Austin's name on a bullet and leave it in the couple's mailbox. These witnesses could not elaborate on what it was Austin owed them money for. However, they stated their personal belief was it had been some sort of credit card fraud or fraud involving the COVID-19 stimulus checks. Police also wanted to find out more about the man they had been renting from, 62-year-old Michael Lee Dudley. Mr. Dudley had a history of being accused of violent and criminal acts, having a past conviction for felony drug trafficking as well as a DUI. Additionally, his own daughter had petitioned for a sexual assault restraining order against him in 2018, claiming that he had abused her for almost a decade. The protection order, however, was ultimately denied, due to the court deciding the accusations did not meet the definition of sexual assault, but instead should be filed as domestic violence, which, reading what he was accused of, seems moronically nitpicky on the part of the court, to put it mildly. Friends of the two victims had also said the couple wasn't entirely comfortable around their new landlord, with Austin describing him as, quote, kind of crazy. Furthermore, relatives of Austin and Jessica described some very troubling behavior exhibited by Mr. Dudley. Austin's aunt claimed that he had on occasion locked the couple inside of the home after telling them to leave, as well as purposefully sabotaging their vehicles if they attempted to go anywhere. The most disturbing claim of all, however, was that he'd beaten a stray dog to death in his front yard for killing one of his chickens, then left the corpse out front for 3 days, a measure Austin's aunt believes was done to strike fear into Austin and Jessica. The fact Mr. Dudley apparently owned chickens also raised officers' suspicions, as traces of animal feathers had been found on both bodies during the autopsy. Police began the process of obtaining a search warrant to Mr. Dudley's residence, and as they were going about this process, a witness came forward with some startling information. A woman who'd recently made the acquaintance of Mr. Dudley but did not know Austin or Jessica contacted police. She claimed that on June 9th, she and a friend had gone over to Mr. Dudley's residence and began moving her stuff into the home. Both women noticed Mr. Dudley's face was covered in scratches and that his glasses appeared to have been recently broken. After they had moved all of the stuff into the house, the witness's friend took a shower and left. The witness herself then also took a shower, and when she was coming out of the bathroom, decided to take a peek into the room she was supposed to be staying in. Inside, she saw a large pile of clothing with what looked like the outline of a human body underneath, and a bloody hand sticking out from under it. The witness went downstairs after getting dressed and spoke to Mr. Dudley about what she'd seen. She claims she brought this up to him in a joking manner, which got a laugh out of him. However, later in the evening, he approached her and asked if she could stay somewhere else that night so he could, quote, clean up the mess. The witness agreed, and Mr. Dudley gave her the keys to one of his trucks. As she was leaving, she saw Mr. Dudley taking a plastic tarp down to his basement and covering the floor with it. She left the residence and didn't come back for several days. Upon returning, yes, even after seeing all that, she decided to return to the house. She noticed bullet holes in the bed frame and nightstand of the room she was staying in, as well as a Roku TV that she found out belonged to Austin. She asked Mr. Dudley about all of this, and his response to her was that Austin and Jessica had attempted to rob him, and that, quote, his gun misfired and mine didn't. Officers also contacted her friend who'd gone to Mr. Dudley's house with her, and not only did she corroborate her story, but added that a few days later she'd gone to the house and saw several trash bags loaded into the back of a truck Mr. Dudley owned. She says these trash bags were emitting a foul-smelling odor that was worse than anything she'd smelled in her life. With all this information, police now had more than enough probable cause. On August 19, 2020, officers executed a warrant for Mr. Dudley's residence and immediately went to the room the witness had described to them. Police noticed that the room had been cleaned top to bottom as well as repainted, and a forensics team was brought in to search for trace evidence. Their search revealed the presence of blood as well as a bullet hole in the wall which had been sealed and painted over. Later analysis revealed that the blood found was indeed human, and DNA matched it to Jessica Lewis. During the search, a neighbor came forward and told police on June 9th, a full 10 days before the remains were found, they'd called 911 in the early hours of the morning because they'd heard screaming and gunshots from inside the residence. Officers arrived and knocked on the door, but received no response and didn't see anything suspicious going on, so they left. Which, personally to me, seems kind of odd. Not to play armchair investigator here or anything, but if you get a call about screaming and gunshots from inside a house, it seems a little silly to just walk away because no one answered the door. Regardless, that's what they did, and Mr. Dudley was detained for questioning following the search. His defense of the blood was that Jessica must have cut herself in the room, However, he could offer no explanation for the bullet holes. He was placed under arrest and charged with second-degree murder in the deaths of Austin and Jessica, to which he pled not guilty. The last update I could find on this case was from September of 2020, and it simply states that Mr. Dudley was arraigned and being held on a $5 million bond. His next court appearance was scheduled for October, but it's possible that it was postponed. Now, this is the first time we have covered an ongoing case, so I want to make a couple of things clear. First, all information in this video is subject to change, as is usual in pending investigations. We will likely make a follow-up video once the dust has settled, and I will be sure to correct anything that might be different. Secondly, it's important to be very clear that anyone currently facing charges is innocent until proven guilty. While the witness testimony combined with Mr. Dudley's past accusations and criminal record may seem damning, we do not yet know the full extent of the story, and that's important to recognize. If you have any information regarding this crime, please contact the Seattle Police Department. Information will be available in the description. Although Mr. Dudley is accused of being the one who killed both Austin and Jessica, officers do not believe he acted alone in disposing of their bodies, so there is a good chance there are more people out there involved with this case. Lastly, the families of Austin and Jessica have set up a GoFundMe to help with the financial burden of paying for their loved ones' funerals. It is still active as of this recording and has yet to quite make its goal of $10,000, so if you have the means, please consider donating. If you want to be updated whenever we post a video, consider subscribing to the channel. We post new videos every other week covering true crime, criminal justice history, and mysterious stories from around the world. This is Crime Spot, and thank you for watching.